60% of women with type 1 diabetes will have experienced an eating disorder by the age of 25. These type 1 diabetics are struggling with this debilitating condition and putting their lives on the line every day. It's been estimated that 1/3 of adolescents and young adults who are suffering from type 1 diabetes are either reducing or omitting completely their insulin. That's a really high number, and they're doing that in order to lose weight. Do you know why this number is so high?
If you're diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is normally type 1 in childhood or adolescence, you're twice as likely to develop an eating disorder as somebody without diabetes. Your whole life revolves around food, and then how much insulin you should take according to what you're eating. And the sort of psychology develops around feeling very out of control of your own body. A way of sort of gaining control is to stop eating or overeat, but not metabolise the calories via insulin omissions.
Across their lifetime, women with type 1 diabetes have a 9 times higher chance of death than their non-diabetic peers. Combine this with an eating disorder and the results are devastating.
So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 14, which I think was quite a vulnerable age at the time. Some of my first memories of being in hospital was being weighed every day, because you do lose a lot of weight when you develop type 1 diabetes. So I've never felt quite in control of my weight. It was always someone else.
Up to 40% of females and 11% of males with type 1 diabetes admits to missing insulin for weight loss purposes. Diabetics with Eating Disorders is currently the only charity in the United Kingdom who advocates and supports sufferers whilst campaigning to get the condition recognised. In 2009, you founded Diabetics with Eating Disorders. At the time, what prompted you to create this non-profit organisation?
The people around me who were suffering with diabulimia were either dying or getting stuck in the healthcare system, and this is sort of like the worst of both worlds, because people in the diabetes world didn't really know what they were looking at, and they weren't trained to deal with this really complex mental illness. And of course, people in the mental illness world had no idea that, you know, type 1 affects mentally so much.
A type 1 eating disorder is not medically recognised, even though thousands of people are suffering with it every day. Do you think physicians would actually be ready to be able to support sufferers?
I think there's partly it's about education, but it's partly about organisation. You then need to know where's the appropriate place for that person to go to get the advice and support they need. Often it is not in one place, and that's the problem.
You're providing education and training for healthcare professionals and also for members of parliament as well. So what have you seen that the government have done so far to raise awareness for this condition?
You know, where do you start? Do you think about trying to get it a name? Well, that's important, but in the meantime, people are dying. Do you train healthcare professionals? Well, yeah, of course you train healthcare professionals, but still there's no official guidelines. So this is something that really at the moment, most of us are kind of making it up as we go along. But there's a lot of very dedicated professionals in the UK, but they need support, they need resources. I kind of think that it's time for us to be proactive instead of reactive.
Sufferers of this condition are waiting months for the correct treatment, and some have even died waiting for the right care. Research and training for healthcare professionals is being provided in more areas than ever before. However, there's still so much more to be done. And the more that we talk about this problem, the more likely it is to be medically recognised.